Okay, in this segment, I'm going to be explaining and discussing what makes a coating green and how they tie into sustainable architecture while also protecting people, buildings, and the environment. We'll be looking at how coating is directly green and then how it is also indirectly green, meaning how it affects the surfaces it's being applied to. One of my passions is that I've always loved hanging out in nature, getting off the grid to center myself, and connecting with the environment. So invariably, it seemed to make good common sense to protect that environment. This thought process, combined with my chosen profession as a coatings expert, led me to constantly promote the use of green, environmentally advanced, friendly coatings. So let's identify these coatings. Here is a list of the characteristics of green coatings. Zero to low VOCs, volatile organic compounds. No ODSs, ozone depleting substances. Non-toxic, water-based, biodegradable, sustainable, renewable, Class A fire rated, waterproof and breathable, impact abused and chemically resistant, extremely flexible with superior elongation. I'll go over this list one by one and explain how certain important characteristics are in fact green. I'll also be separating these characteristics into two categories. First, the coating being directly green, and then the coating affecting results being indirectly green. Let's start with zero to low VOCs, volatile organic compounds. VOCs are emitted from certain solids and liquids. In coating specifically, they are the outgassing of compounds that are released into the environment as the coatings dry and cure, which contribute to greenhouse gases that add to climate change, global warming. Research shows that some VOCs can cause chronic and acute health effects at high concentrations and are known carcinogens. Some may produce severe responses even in certain individuals and even at low to moderate levels. A few of the immediate symptoms are visual disorders, memory impairment, respiratory tract irritation, headaches, and dizziness. They can also damage the liver, kidney, and central nervous system. Children and the elderly are some of the more vulnerable to the effects of VOCs. Investigative research found that children subjected to high doses of VOCs are more likely to develop asthma, allergic rhinitis, and eczema. Studies also showed exposure to VOCs by the elderly caused impaired pulmonary function through enhancing oxidative stress. Investigations also found that indoor levels of organics are 2 to 5 times higher than outdoor levels. Certain activities like painting with high VOCs can raise that amount to 1,000 times higher. High VOCs contribute to sick building syndrome, SPS, which is a broad term used to describe industrial, commercial, and residential buildings that have environmental hazards that can lead to BRI, building-related illness. This BRI is also sometimes caused by exposure to hazardous, obsolete building materials such as asbestos, lead-based paint, PCBs, and other solid hazardous materials, which we'll also be discussing in this course in other sections, and how the right green coating can be used to easily control these materials with simple in-place management. The best way to minimize exposure to VOCs is through proper ventilation and using low to zero VOC products. Always consider the amount of VOCs whenever using any products, especially with indoor painting. Now let's move on to the next characteristic of a green coating, which is no ODSs, no ozone depleting substances. ODSs are man-made gases that, when released into the atmosphere, deplete and destroy the ozone layer. The ozone layer is the upper atmosphere that reduces the penetration of higher levels of harmful UV ultraviolet rays reaching us here on Earth. Those higher levels of UV rays are both detrimental to both humans and the environment. UV rays have negative effects, including high risk of skin cancer, immune deficiency disorders, and even eye cataracts. UV rays also affect ecosystems and most critically our food chain. In addition, research shows that some viruses can be triggered by a surge of exposure to UV rays, so ozone depleting substances ODSs are something you don't want in coatings or other products. Next up is non-toxic. Green coatings should be non-toxic and have no harmful ingredients or side effects to people or the environment. In the simplest terms, they are safe, benign, and innocuous. You want green coatings to be at least clean enough to pass testing that states they can be applied in the presence of pregnant women and children. This claim can and should only be backed up with independent accredited laboratory testing. Next is water-based. With water-based products and coatings, water is the main ingredient, and they also clean up with water. Water-based coatings are much less likely to off-gas organic fumes than standard oil-based paints. The last characteristic is biodegradable. A coating is biodegradable when it can break down and decay naturally in a way that is not harmful to the environment, decomposing by natural living organisms. Those are the basic characteristics when considering green coatings. They are the direct benefits provided by green coatings. High quality green coatings can offer a whole lot more of indirect benefits. These are some of the additional desirable qualities of green coatings. The first one ties into this course, making sure that the coating is long-lasting and sustainable. Sustainable, high-quality green coatings should be able to withstand the test of time against natural and man-made elements. They are able to transform weak, susceptible surfaces into tough, durable ones that can take a lot of abuse through wear and tear. Outstanding, long-lasting performance means they can last for at least a 20-year life cycle under the most stressful and harsh conditions. This means that they can sustain attacks from rain, wind, sun, ultraviolet rays, salt sea spray, chemicals, and other elements that can break down a coating. Also, they need to tolerate repeated washing and scrub downs with harsh chemicals and abrasive methods. Renewable is the next important characteristic that is needed. To be renewable means at the end of a coating's life cycle, the products are simply recoated to cross-link bond, adhering to themselves for another service life cycle. This means never needing to be removed and generating unwanted waste. Making sure that coating is something that is easily restored, saving you from generating any unnecessary waste that will need to be transported and stored in what are often overflowing landfills is an important feature. Being renewable also applies to the surfaces that the coatings are being directly put on to rejuvenate them. This is important on all surfaces and especially on historic properties. Next up is Class A fire rated. This is extremely important classification, showing that the coating will not support combustion and adds to an extra benefit to the layer of coating protection. There is also another significant classification that relates to this. That is the consequential test known as the UPIT test, or Pittsburgh Protocol, in which coatings are tested to ensure that nothing toxic is released in a fire. Having this testing and Class A fire rating green coating on your building is beneficial by not adversely affecting the fire rating or the building codes of the surfaces they are protecting. Next is waterproof and breathable. You want a coating that can be installed quickly that turns weak, susceptible surfaces into a strong membrane, stopping the water penetration and being able to hold up against strong weather occurrences such as heavy rain, flooding, and high wind events. This waterproofing is an important quality. An equally critical feature for that coating is for it to support outgassing, also known as vapor transmission. This allows potentially trapped water vapor to transmit through the coatings and outgas, ensuring that the applied coating will not permanently trap damaging moisture. This outgassing of moisture is critical in many situations, and again, especially when taking into consideration the restoration and protection of historic properties. Now let's touch base on impact, abuse, and chemically resistant. You want a coating that is able to hold up to repeated long-term wear and tear that normal paint can't withstand. High-quality, sustainable green coatings are greatly impact abuse, rain, wind, fire, rot, mold, mildew, UV, and chemically resistant. They can defend surfaces from brutal attacks that can cause expensive, short, and long-term damage.
one in your home and building.
Okay, next up for a preferred green coating is being extremely flexible with superior elongation. This is an important aspect for a sustainable coating to have, since every building or structure moves. They all expand and contract through heat and cold and vibration. So it stands to reason that if the coatings you are applying don't move with the typical and expected movement, the coating system will crack and the integrity of your coating structure will break down and fail. So once installed, you want a coating with not just good flexibility, but also superior elongation. Now I'll close this section by once more emphasizing how important green coatings are used to protect people, buildings, and the environment. Also, how this is especially true when dealing with older distressed properties that have asbestos, lead-based paint, PCBs, or other solid hazardous materials, and are turned green by simply and safely managing those hazardous materials in place while stopping exposure to people and the environment. Also, how all properties can be protected from breakdown and decay, defending against damaging weather and natural disasters. Again, how all this is important to sustainable architecture.